Well, thank you. Thank you. And we are at our last session of the day. I hope you enjoyed the breakout sessions and found them interesting. I went to a couple, and I went to Bill and Greg's on technology in agriculture. Man, that was amazing about using biometrics in Uganda to go down, lower down the pyramid. And there was a quote, and I'm not sure if Bill or Greg used it, and they were quoting someone else, but I loved it. It's the future's already here. It's just unevenly distributed. Love that. So the sessions were really designed to start a conversation. So if you found something that you want more information on, please get with your opportunity rep to accommodate that. They'd be happy to do that. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce two people who have both been longtime members of the organization, who will share what the defining moments have been in their journey with opportunity. Mark Lutz began with us 36 years ago and launched fundraising in the organization. He's built hundreds of deep relationships with staff, supporters, and clients in his travels around the world, and wrote about many of those encounters in his book, Unpoverty: Rich Lessons from the Working Poor. Should look familiar. You all received it in your gift bags at check-in. Katherine Haley was the leader for the Young Ambassadors of Opportunity and continues to support us as a member of our Board of Governors today. She's the founder of Oak Rose Group, a consulting firm that produces meaningful improvements in education, workforce development, and economic mobility. Please help me welcome Mark and Katherine to this stage.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, thank you all so much for staying. We're really glad you're here, and thank you, Carol, for a warm introduction. And I have to indulge myself for a second. Thank you to the incredible Opportunity staff and all here at the Sheraton for ensuring a flawless day. So, Mark, I've been coming to things like this for almost 2 decades, and every time I learn something new. What did you learn today?
I tell you, I came in here and I looked at the round and I said, wow, some of the things just don't change. A lot of these people haven't changed. I've seen these folks for 20, 30 years and sometimes even longer than that. And one of the things I noticed that doesn't change is our mission. And that has just remained constant, rock solid from the beginning.
I love that. I love that. Well, if you all would take a second, you'll see on the screen momentarily a QRX code. You can take a photo of that up there, or you can go to slido.com and enter the code, and you can maybe share things that you learned today. And as we continue our conversation, you'll be able to see what's on the screen and maybe be inspired from others in this room. So with that, Mark, as our guests are submitting their comments, what's the one thing, the one big takeaway that you learned today? You shared a second ago, but give us another.
Yeah, the things that are constant are just remarkable. The strategy keeps evolving as we respond to the expressed needs of the poor. But I sense that the commitment to following Jesus' call to love the poor, that has just remained constant. And that's just been remarkable. I've heard it in our discussions. And I think that our commitment to that is both with the poor that we serve and also with each other. There's no sense of feeling that, hey, faith is going to divide us, where everybody's included. And I think the other thing that I mentioned is that this is so sticky. And it is just wonderful to be a part of this community. So that's my takeaway from the day, is the pleasure of being part of the community.
So when I think about that, I love that you said it's so sticky, because as I heard today, throughout all the different speakers and the former CEOs and many of the different supporters, is the continued relevance and dynamism. I think it was said multiple times that Opportunity invests, it trains, and it supports entrepreneurs all around the world. And And that, I think, is just incredible. One of the things that I learned being in the education session, bravo, was that today we are serving 9.6 million kids in 31,000 schools. And that's because of your generosity, the entrepreneurial nature of opportunity to continue to innovate and serve our clients around the world.
That is a remarkable statistic. So what are the things that you've learned? Put them up on your phone and send them to us. And while you're doing that, we're going to, Katherine, if you would just take a few minutes and tell us a few of the pivotal points that you've had in your journey with opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. So I first learned about opportunity in 2003. And if you'll indulge me, I'll kind of hit 4 things. The first was I had just gone to Kenya with my church. I was living in Washington, D.C. I happened to be home in Arizona, and my parents informed me, this guy, Chris Crane, is going to be coming to our house, and we're going to have an event for him, and it'll be interesting. And I knew nothing about microfinance. This was not something that our family had been active in, but I had just been to Kenya where I saw micro enterprises, and I saw the power of these small businesses and how women, particularly at that time with HIV, were earning meager income to provide for the school fees for their children. And so I was like, Mom, Dad, like at the end of the day, we have to be involved with this organization. So it's about 20 years. Fast forward in 2008, my mom, my sister, and I, we got to go to Rwanda. Cindy Schwab-Salem and Lydia were with us. And there, I was just, again, like you're seeing things real life, real time. And I was really impacted by a testimony of a woman by the name of Chantal. She was a part of Let's Support Each Other Trust Group. We were there in Kigali. She was fairly timid, but there was sort of a spark in her eye. And she shared with us that her husband, while a taxi driver, had steady income, did not often provide for their family. Food was scarce, and so it was stressful. But through a friend, she learned about this trust group. She got her first loan, and she started selling maize and flour, and very soon started growing her own little business. Her husband began to respect her. She was able to provide for her family. But the moment that we all laughed was when she said that she gave her husband a loan because his windshield was broken, and before he could turn it in to the taxi owner, it had to be repaired or he would be in major debt. And she just stood there like quietly smiling that she had been able to do this for her family. One last thing, in 2012, I had the opportunity to go to Nicaragua with you all. And there I saw essentially all of Opportunity's innovations. We met Ricardo, which you'll be able to see in a minute. And through ag finance, he was not only able to increase his yield, but also the quality. And here's a gentleman that had been farming for decades, and just like the pride of the number of the fields that he was able to impact and also continue to provide his family. It was incredible. But then also got to visit this school. My Spanish is terrible, but in English it's entrepreneurial school. And there we saw just kids that were learning tourism, farming, management, in addition to traditional subjects like Spanish, English, and history. And again, it just was like opening the doors to more and more opportunity. And my last, and again, thank you for your patience, was just for a number of years, many within the opportunity community were able to participate in a global fundraiser called Live Below the Line. This is where individuals were invited in to raise funds for an organization that they were passionate about on living on $1.50 a day. And so I did that, was able to raise a decent amount of money from my friends, and they indulged me often. And one friend challenged me and said, it's great that you're living on $1.50 a day, but this is just food. The people that you talk about they have to do so much more with their $1.50. And if you haven't had a chance to go next door, there's an activity where you're able to get 8 coins and you get to choose how you're gonna spend your food, your healthcare, your housing, etc. And so I was just spending my $1.50 on food. And so I chose to walk to work. And it was at 90 minutes each way along the National Mall in DC. But I was stunned by the tenacity and determination of Opportunity's clients, its loan officers, and many of you who have stuck with this organization for so many years. So again, like obviously this organization means a lot to me. Mark, you have been with the organization for 30 years. You've gone on countless of insight trips, and you've chronicled so many stories in your own poverty book. Is there one story that you would like to share with us and make sure that we
Thanks, Catherine.
remember?
Yes. Thank you. So in celebration of 50 years, why don't we go back about 30, when Opportunity was just launching our work into Africa. And come with me to Zimbabwe. I'd like to introduce you to Theresa Mbacera, our entrepreneur of that year. As a little girl, Teresa had to drop out of grade school in order to help her mother make and sell brooms out of grass and sticks. Because of the choices between education and survival, really not much of a choice, and Teresa could not go to school. Well, like many other girls in rural Africa, when Teresa became a teenager, she also became a mother. And a few years later, she left their farm community and she followed her husband into the capital where he hoped to find work. And once they settled in Harare, Teresa was deserted by her husband, leaving her 4 children and her to defend for themselves. And Teresa determined to provide for her children the schooling that she was denied. She became a domestic maid, and for the next several years, this woman worked 12, 14 hours every day, caring for the needs of 3 families before she could go home and take care of her own kids. And it was that little girl who was born into of poverty on the farm, but deserted by her husband, forced out of school by her parents. She persisted. And that was the lesson that I learned from Teresa's story. But one of the other lessons I learned from her is that we don't have to reach everybody to end extreme poverty. When Teresa realized that she had to maybe earn a living there, because she had now had a 5th child, she was remarried, she needed to earn money by staying at home. And that's when she heard about Opportunity International. And she took out a loan for a few $100s and bought some vegetables that she sold out in the front of her house. She added some more items, and she called this a supermarket. But it wasn't, trust me, I saw it. And with her profits, she opened up another store across town and hired somebody to manage that supermarket. Well, about a year or so later, she borrowed money again, this time for firewood. And she hired somebody to bring a truckload of logs and dump them in front of her house, paid somebody to cut them up and stack them and sell them, because everyone in her community was dependent upon a wood-burning stove to do their cooking and boil their drinking water. Well, when that loan was paid off, still a few $100s, she bought a hairdryer. And she turned one of the bedrooms in her tiny little house into a beauty salon, and she hired one of the neighbors to come in and cut hair. And with the profits, she bought another chair and hired another lady, and then a third. Well, when that was paid off, Teresa took out a 4th loan, this time to buy the materials to build a little shed on the side of her house. And she turned it into a game room, and she bought this used foosball table and some outdated arcade games, and she created this safe environment for the children in her community to come and play. Well, and Teresa took out another loan. Here she is, this serial entrepreneur with a 3rd grade education, and she bought a freezer. And every night before bed, she would take little plastic baggies and fill them with different flavored fruit juice, and over a candle, she'd seal them closed and put them in the freezer, and the next day, for a few pennies, she'd sell popsicles to the children as they'd walk home from school or come and use her game room. Let me read just a couple paragraphs about Teresa's story. Now in her 80s, Teresa's workday begins at 4 in the morning with the bookkeeping for her 4 businesses. At 7, she starts her round inspecting the different operations. She still runs the firewood stand in the supermarkets. She closed the beauty salon when her husband, who has since died, became bedridden. Recently, she added another business. She is a Coca-Cola distributor. She sells soda by the case to others who then sell bottles on the street or in their supermarkets. And the last I heard, she was applying for a loan to buy an old truck, one that would double as a delivery vehicle for the wholesale soda business, as well as function as a hearse. She sold the video games to make room for a funeral business where she sells caskets. With AIDS devastating her nation and life expectancy down in the 30s at that time, the demand for her latest enterprise was on the rise.
Wow.
And you can read more about Teresa's story in the new edition of On Poverty, because it's been expanded by Larry Reed, who met Teresa when he first moved with his young family in the early 90s to Zimbabwe. And her story talks about how that she has just constantly grown. And Larry, thank you for filling us in on some of the additional items that she has brought to us. I'm in awe of Teresa, clearly. For she, forced to drop out of school, ended up putting several of her own children through university. And the lesson I learned from her is this persistence, but it's also that we do not have to reach all the poor people in order to end extreme poverty. By investing in their lives, we have this opportunity to create this profound ratchet effect. And the poor will create capital, educate children, build vibrant communities. And you and I have the great privilege of being their voice. And together at Opportunity, we have created this highly leveraged catalyst that ignites their economic engines. So on behalf of Teresa, thank you for what you've done.
So good. Wow. Mark, it's a powerful. Teresa, I remember reading it a few years ago when the book first came out, and it is a story of perseverance and entrepreneurialism and adapting, and that's so much of what this organization is about. So tonight, we will have the chance to recommit ourselves to opportunity in this revolution. We'll have a chance to be waymakers ourselves, to step up in boldness on behalf of the clients that we get to serve. Today, we'll get to add 25 million new clients over the next few years through this campaign. And as we close out this afternoon, we will toast tonight. We will celebrate 50 years of incredible work. We will raise a glass in honor of those that have gone before us and those that will go ahead. But as we recharge, I'd like to encourage each of you to reflect on what you heard today and consider what it would look like for you to be a champion of this organization today and definitely tomorrow. So there's many practical ways. If you take out your book that's at your desk or in your bag probably, and you turn to page 13, you'll see the Get Involved page. While Mark and I comment on a few things, I'd like to encourage you to check off the things that you would like to be a part of. There's no limit. You can check all of them, or at least check all of them and commit to exploring them so that then you can bring it back to your community or commit to doing these things later today. So as these things come up on the screen, first, this is something that I did many years ago. Consider joining the Board of Governors. It's $5,000 a year, and this commitment is the lifeline of this organization. And then second, it's my turn still.
Go ahead.
Is similar to our microfinance circles, our trust groups. Start your own donor trust circle. The purpose of these is to, yes, raise resources for opportunity, but it's to invite your friends in, and collectively you contribute resources You dedicate it to a particular part of the country, you learn about it, you share, and you really kind of get that sense that many within our trust groups experience.
And another is to simply throw a dinner party, either in your home or at your club, just 2 or 3 couples, bring together people. This has been the most effective way of building Opportunity's strong base. And there are some years when we've had up to as many as 40 of these little gatherings in folks' homes. And it's a lot of fun, and your friends will thank you for doing it. Another practical thing to consider is to commit to praying for Opportunity. Pray for the staff. You've met several of them here today around the world. And for our clients who are seeking to survive in some of the most challenging environments in the world.
Love that. And we heard earlier, there's some of you have been those hosts of dinner parties and invited so many into this organization. So another thing, go onto opportunity.org, sign up to get emails and newsletters from them. It's incredibly informative. They don't burden you with lots of emails. But once you get that information, you then can be a greater ambassador to tell your friends. At a minimum, all of us should leave today committed to telling our friends, our colleagues, and our neighbors.
Perhaps one of the more time-consuming ways to get involved is to go on an insight trip. There's an exhibit in the exhibit hall. There's a booth there with some of the trips that are coming up and available this year. I had the privilege of taking each of my 3 children one at a time as they were getting old enough to appreciate that. And it is a tremendously transformative experience for them and a real bonding time for us. I have a soon-to-be 12-year-old grandson, and I'm already kind of getting the thing going to take him with me on a trip. And you will love the trips. One of the final things that we encourage you all to do is to consider what you would like to do financially. You'll be given a chance tonight to make a contribution. I hope you'll be inspired by all those around you who contribute and how much impact this will have. And please give only out of a sense of gratitude, not out of any kind of obligation. We're delighted that you're here. We're grateful that you're here, and hope that you'll give out of gratitude, not only for the fact that we were all born in this country, hitting life's jackpot by virtue of where we were born, but also thankful for all that has been accomplished throughout the world. So I hope you'll take part in that this evening.
It's such a good reminder, Mark. We have been blessed to be here in this country, and for all of us that are in this room. So as we wrap up this session and we go on to rest and recharge and prepare for this evening, I invite each of you to be part of Opportunity's future. For 50 years, this organization has lived into its mission to equip families with the tools and the training they need to build businesses, to improve their harvests, to send their kids to school, to develop better businesses, to improve their communities, and ultimately to break the cycle of poverty. So together, each of us in this room and those that we get to invite, we have the opportunity to lift up another 25 million new clients through the Waymaker campaign. So with that, thank you all so much for being with us today.
Here.
Thanks, Mark and Catherine, very much for your comments. What a great way to conclude our session with your own journeys and suggestions of how we can all further our involvement. You know, today we've gone full circle. We heard from one of our 2 founders. We listened to several leaders who guided Opportunity through the decades, adjusting, innovating, but never forgetting our mission to love and serve the poor. We heard from one of our beloved clients and learned from our program leaders about even more innovative solutions that we can offer more clients. We were inspired by our award winners and Mark and Catherine's remarks, and we were invited to continue our partnership by the Waymaker campaign cheers. As you leave today, I hope you'll join me and thinking about what your own journey has been with opportunity and where you can take your next step. Mark and Catherine gave us some great ideas. But know this, you are changing lives. If you leave here today with nothing else, know that that is true. And thank you for the lives that you are impacting. With that, I'll close our session by saying thank you so much for being here. Happy 50th anniversary. Get your rest, and I'll see you downstairs in a little bit.